I just viewed my Yale admissions file and oh my god. Okay, well, it wasn't like that bad. At the beginning of the PDF, there's all the things that you submitted. So all of your test scores, your essays. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I think it was basically it, you know, like what you submitted about yourself, you know, and like what your parents do and that kind of thing. Editing Carrie here to mention something that I forgot to mention when I was filming is they did have a note that said that they knew I was the top 10% of my class from my counselor recommendations. And I also want to note that I went to private school, and that process of college applications and preparing is going to be completely different if you go to a public school or charter school or anything like that. So I'm just wanting to share my experience, but I know it can be vastly different on the Common App. Oh, your extracurriculars. And then we get to the spice, which was a couple sections. So there were your interview notes if you did an interview, and then your first reviewer and then your second reviewer, and then finally if you will get a likely nomination. So in my interview notes, it just had basic information on where the interview took place, how often my interviewer does interviews, and he just wrote notes about me. So he said, oh, and during this Zoom process, you can't take screenshots, like you're not allowed to have the PDF that they put together, but you can take notes. So I'm reading from my notes here. So he said, I was a genuine, kind, and somewhat traditional person with an open mind. Okay, T. I had areas of interest in linguistics, AI, French, and architecture, and he noted like these are all kinds of topics that explore how humans think and communicate. But he kind of gave me like a recommendation that like I should probably narrow my interests to one or two things if I want to, you know, develop as a human being. And yeah, I mean, now I study architecture, and I mean, does using ChatGPT count as interest in AI? He did note like low key she doesn't know very much about AI, so yeah. And then I took UCLA extension classes in high school, and he noted that. So it was nice to see that I was pursuing interests that outside of what was currently available for me in my high school. And he noted that I know that my interests are strengths at Yale, which was linguistics and architecture primarily, and a bit of language. Basically his conclusion was like, I'm a small town gal and I'm gonna be a teacher, right? And like, unlike people who he might interview that have like crazy ambitions in like being a researcher or whatever, you know, like industry leader or whatever, I'm like a very simple kind of person. I would thrive in intimate settings is what he said. He said I was up to speed about current affairs. I understand that there are different perspectives on like, specifically like my family's from Hong Kong, and so we talked about US, China, Hong Kong relations, and he noted that like I understand that there are different perspectives on these events, and I'm pretty cautious about expressing my own opinions. Otherwise, I'm pretty open-minded, and I'm more or less on the liberal side of the story, but I don't like it when others try to stop people with different perspectives from speaking up, which I think is pretty accurate, you know, like, yeah. And he said he might come from a rather traditional Chinese/Hong Kong family. I'm more familiar with Chinese history than Western history. I'm not sure if this is true. Like, I mean, I was educated in America. I never went to school in Hong Kong, other than like a summer camp where we went to like the middle of a farm, basically. Right. So he noted that my church has a lot of Chinese, which is true. I went to a Chinese church. And then he said like we had a conversation about the transition between high school and college, but he noted that overall he had a strong impression. Good. Enjoyable interview, and student was engaging and interesting in substantive ways. So, not to flex, but I am substantive. All right, so my first reviewer had like a bunch of scores on me, and it was like extracurricular 6, something else 6, academics 6, and then like they give you an overall rating from like 1 to they give you a right. So your extracurriculars, teacher recommendations, and counselor recommendations get a rating from 1 to 9, where 9 is the highest. I remember getting like 6s and 7s for the most part for those. And then your overall rating gets a rating from 1 to 4, where 1 is the highest. So like I got 2 pluses from both the first and the second reviewers. So like I guess I'm sort of good, but maybe they're on the fence. Who knows? Creds are strong. Great job with app. Everyone at my high school loves her. We should take a closer look. So that's what she said. I found it interesting. Okay, so for context, I applied early and then I got deferred and then I got in the regular round. So I think like when they're looking at applications, they will note from what bin they took your application from. So I'm from the first reviewer from bin complete into the bin diversity. The second reviewer said, like his paragraph was substantially shorter. He said, strong read from front to back, ASC, which stands for alumni interview, report lacked some spark, but it is a solid and positive write-up. So he was like, it was fine. Okay, it was fine. He said, no real holes to poke. Seems like someone who will be active in religious life, AACC, and YSO. And he kind of ate with that, you know, because I was like active in the AACC because I worked for CASA, which is the Chinese American Student Association, which is like a branch within the AACC, which is the Asian American Cultural Center. So yeah, I applied to things through the AACC too. Religious life, sort of. I mean, I've gone to like a couple services, but I wouldn't say like I'm the most active member of religious life. So like, I'm dabbling in there, right? And YSO. So I didn't even audition for YSO, but I did play in Davenport Pop's orchestra. Yeah. And then it said like he was missing interview for the second reviewer. So I'm assuming he didn't see my interview notes. Editing Carrie here to say, actually, he definitely read my interview because he said that my interview lacked spark. So I don't really know what the missing interview means. Yeah. And then interesting to note is he took it from the bin diversity into the bin asterisk capital reading done asterisk. Yeah, and then I didn't get a likely nomination. But it's okay, because I'm in. And like, overall, seeing my application is like kind of out of body, you know, like seeing other people talk about you. But it's also like nothing that I didn't expect, right? Like a lot of these things are how I also see myself, right? Like I also see myself as someone who's pretty hardworking. I know what my interests are. I know like, but what is crazy to me actually about this is that they can pick up on this stuff from your essays. And like my reviewers didn't talk to me at all, right? It was only my interviewer. But like from an hour-long conversation with my interviewer, he was able to like get a feel for what I'm interested in and like why I'm interested in Yale. And like one thing that he did say was like, seems like to really love Yale, right? And like there's a genuine passion there. And I think that's something that definitely helped me. But editing Carrie here also to say that I think what helped me the most in my application was my letter of recs. So thinking back on the scores, I got 6 on extracurriculars, 6 on both teacher recommendations, but a 7 on my counselor recommendation from the first reviewer. And then for the second reviewer, I got a 5 on my extracurriculars and 6s on both my teacher reviewers, and then 7 on my counselor rec again. And so like,
The second reviewer clearly didn't think that my extracurriculars were anything out of the ordinary because it's on a scale of 1 to 9, where 9 is the highest. But he did think, and they both thought that my recs were pretty good, which I think were the foundation of my application.
Obviously, to me, not a lot is surprising because it's like reading a report on myself, but it's like out of body to see how other people see me through like 3 pieces of paper, basically. But yeah, I hope this was helpful. I think like I struggle a lot with whether I should put out these kinds of Yale-centric like application process videos. I don't want people to stress out about stats and whatever, so I don't think I'll ever really talk about my stats. But like I just want like another perspective out there that shows you that there's multiple ways to get in, and it's not like you don't have to aim to like be the next Elon Musk, right? Like my interviewer said, like it seems like she could be like go back home and be a teacher, right? And that's still something that they're interested in seeing. So hope that's helpful. I'll see y'all.